Imagine if you had the cardio to dominate your next fight with an endless pace. I'm talking a relentless gas tank. You're moving forward, you're stealing the soul from the person standing in front of you. You can't be stopped. This is the cardio that most fighters dream of, and unfortunately, very few will ever achieve. And the reason is because they're wasting their time with long runs and unnecessary hit circuits and too much sprinting. If this sounds like you, if you're struggling with your cardio, if you feel like you're gassing out every time you make it past the first round or even in sparring on the mat, I got you covered. In the video today, we're going to be talking about the key to building championship cardio. We're going to be talking about heart rate data, science-backed, data-driven approaches to solving all of your cardio struggles. Stay tuned. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new, we cover everything from strength, conditioning, weight management, nutrition. If you're a fighter that has big dreams of making it far in the fight game, but your strength, conditioning, or nutrition is holding you back, this is the place for you. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on anything that we're dropping on the channel. And if you're digging the video, hit that like button, show some love, show some support. I really appreciate it. So let's jump right into the video. Today, we're gonna be talking about the key to building championship cardio. I talk to fighters, grapplers, combat athletes in general. Cardio is the number one issue that they're struggling with. It's the number one attribute that's holding them back. And unfortunately, so many fighters, they feel like they're doing everything in their power to have incredible cardio. They're going on long runs. They're never missing a training session. They're doing these really intense hit circuits. Every day they feel like they're giving it 100% of their effort. But no matter how hard they try, they're still gassing out. And what I found through years and years of working with combat athletes, it's not about how much work we're doing, it's about the quality of work that we're doing. And it all comes back to heart rate-based conditioning. Heart rate-based conditioning is a science-backed, data-driven approach to taking all of the guesswork out of our cardio, ensuring that we can dominate our fight and leaving no aspect of our conditioning, of our cardio, to chance. One of the most important metrics that we use with all of our athletes on the Counter-Strike system is resting heart rate. So we're gonna be doing a deep dive into resting heart rate, and at the end of the video, you're gonna be armed with the tools to improve your cardio to a ridiculous new level using resting heart rate. We're gonna be talking about what resting heart rate is. We're gonna be talking about why resting heart rate is important. We're gonna be talking about what your resting heart rate should be to compete at a very high level in any combat sport. And then we're gonna be talking about the best way to improve your resting heart rate. So first and foremost, what is resting heart rate? Simply put it, your resting heart rate is the number of times your heart beats in 1 minute at rest. So right now, I'm sitting at rest. However many times my heart beats in 1 minute, that's what my resting heart rate is. So our heart pumps thousands of gallons of blood throughout our body to supply it with oxygen and nutrients and the things it needs to stay alive and grow in the sense of combat sports, perform at a very high level. So let's say I have two athletes, the same weight, the same age, they're virtually identical. They have to pump the same amount of blood throughout their body in a minute to stay alive at rest. The one athlete, their heart beats at 40 beats per minute, and the other athlete, their heart beats at 60 beats per minute. They have to pump the same exact amount of blood throughout the body, but the athlete that has a heart rate of 60 beats per minute, their heart is going to have to work harder than the athlete that's heart beats at 40 beats per minute to pump the same exact amount of blood throughout the body, okay? So think about it like this, if we can get our resting heart rate lower, we can pump more blood throughout our body with less beats, this means our heart is going to do less work. This means it's going to take longer for us to fatigue and gas out. And it's also an overall great measure of health. If our heart doesn't have to work as long to keep us alive, then we're going to be alive for longer. And in terms of athletic performance, specifically for fighters, if our heart doesn't have to work as hard to supply blood and oxygen and nutrients throughout our body, then we can push the pace harder because our heart, our body is going to take longer to gas out. So we know what our resting heart rate is. So for combat sports, for championship cardio, why is it so important? If we think about any combat sport, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, judo, wrestling, MMA, all of these sports are highly aerobic sports. What this means is that we use oxygen to break down the energy that's going to fuel our performance. Using oxygen for energy is far less fatiguing than not using oxygen for energy. So if we're just pushing the pace super hard at a heart rate that's above 150 minutes, then we're going to start to shift into an anaerobic zone. This means we're not using oxygen for energy. We're going to fatigue very quickly. Our arms, our legs, our body's gonna burn. Our heart's gonna beat really hard. We're gonna start breathing heavy, and we're gonna gas out. This is where most fighters are. But as we know, a lower resting heart rate means our heart doesn't have to work as hard to supply blood, oxygen, nutrients throughout our body. This oxygen is going to allow us to perform for longer without fatiguing. So our heart doesn't have to work as hard. This means our output in the cage on the mat can be sustained for much longer without fatiguing. A low resting heart rate is also a really strong indicator for our recovery and how stressed out we are. This is something that we use with all of our fight team athletes. If we see that their resting heart rate is higher than usual, then this is usually a good sign that they're under recovering, they're overtraining, they could get hurt. So we have to modify their training for them to recover adequately until we see that resting heart rate lower and return to normal. To get sciencey on you for a second, this is a measure of our autonomic nervous system. This is basically the part of our body that keeps all of our functioning that we don't have to think about going. It keeps us alive, like our breathing, our digestion, our heart rate. The autonomic nervous system, it has two parts to it. It has our sympathetic, think like fight or flight. When you're fighting, your heart rate's beating high, you're stressed out, you're on alert. This is your sympathetic system. And your parasympathetic system. Think rest and digest. Right now, I'm chilling, I'm relaxed, I don't have a lot of stress, so my body, it can recover. What happens is if we're not adequately recovering from the training that we're doing, then we're going to spend more time in this fight or flight sympathetic zone than we should be, and this is going to be shown by a higher than normal resting heart rate. So by keeping our resting heart rate low and monitoring it and tracking it, this can help us reduce the chances of getting injured, burning out, and can level up our cardio to a very high standard of performance. So now we know what resting heart rate is. We know why it's important. So what resting heart rate should you have to ensure that you can dominate your next fight with relentless championship cardio? So I'm gonna bring up a chart. It's right here. This is data from the US Department of Health and Human Services. So you're gonna see there's a top and a bottom part to the chart. The top part, this is for men. The bottom part, this is for women. If we look all the way to the right side of the chart, this is where we're going to see our athlete level. So for most fighters, we're gonna be in the 20 to 39 range of age. So for men, having a resting heart rate of 47 to 54 beats per minute is very high level. This is elite level athlete. And for women, having a resting heart rate of 52 to 59 beats per minute, very high level, elite. This is going to help you push the pace with relentless cardio. To show you a more real world example, two of the UFC fighters that have gone through the Counter-Strike data-driven system that I personally worked with, Shane Burgos and Julio Arce, if we take a look at what their resting heart rates are, Shane Burgos has an average resting heart rate of 40 beats per minute. This is ridiculous. This is an insanely low, high level resting heart rate. And this is why he can continuously just push the face and walk forward in the octagon. No matter how much damage, no matter what's in front of him, he doesn't stop moving. If we look at Julio Arce, he has an average resting heart rate of 48 beats per minute. So again, this is highly, highly athletic. This is why he can continuously move. He can throw nonstop throughout his fights, and he can just wear his opponents down every single round without fatiguing. So by now, you should know what resting heart rate is, you should know why it's important, and you should know where your resting heart rate needs to be to dominate at a UFC championship level in any combat sport. So now the burning question, what can we do to lower our resting heart rate? Well, the best way to lower our resting heart rate is something called cardiac output. Okay, now cardiac output is the best way to lower your resting heart rate. There's a ton of different methods and workouts that we use with all of our fighters on our fight team. If you want to check some of them out, our video is going to be linked right here for the 3 best cardio workouts to never gas out again. Make sure you check it out. So cardiac output, it's very simple. It could be done in a ton of different ways. It could be done by going on long runs. I typically don't like fighters to go on long runs. So we can do cardiac output in something like a tempo interval, or we can do it with bag work or in skill training. But the key here is making sure we maintain a heart rate of 130 to 150 beats per minute, and we maintain that heart rate anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes in duration. This heart rate range is crucial. If we go higher than 150 beats per minute, then we start to push into that anaerobic zone. Remember, we talked about it earlier, that zone where we're not using oxygen. This is very fatiguing, and we're going to burn out, and we're not going to improve our heart and our cardio the way that we want it to. On the other side, if our heart rate is lower than 130 beats per minute, then we're not putting enough stress on our body. We're not doing enough work to actually cause any kind of improvement or change. So you're just gonna be running for no reason. You're just gonna be working for no reason. You're gonna stay exactly where you are. This range of 130 to 150 beats per minute, it's the sweet spot. What this allows us to do is it's not too fatiguing, so we can send enough oxygen throughout our body, but it's also hard enough work where our body needs to recover from the workout, from the exercise that we're doing. When our heart rate is between this range, 130 to 150 beats per minute, a couple things are happening. First, our heart, our chambers are expanding. The blood is filling, so what happens is over time, our heart gets bigger. That means our heart can hold more volume of blood, which means our heart can push out more blood in one beat. This is going to lower the amount of work that our heart has to do to supply blood, nutrients, oxygen throughout our body, and this is going to lower our resting heart rate. The other way that staying in the range of 130 to 150 beats per minute improves our cardio is on the recovery side of things. If you remember, we talked about our autonomic nervous system. If our brain and our body can be comfortable training and maintaining that 130 to that 150 beat per minute range, then our body's not going to be as stressed out when our heart rate is in those ranges, which is going to translate to a lower resting heart rate when we're off the mat, when we're not training, when we're recovering. This is like randomly running miles and miles or doing unnecessarily hard HIIT exercises just for the sake of feeling dead at the end of the workout. This is the same as driving without a GPS. You would never do it. So why would you take it to your training? Again, if you dug the video, make sure you like it, show some support, show some love. Make sure you're subscribed and you hit the notification bell. And let me know in the comments, what is your resting heart rate? Throw it down there. I'll see you next time.